Welcome, everyone. This is Revenue Roadmap, where we talk about driving revenue and increasing profits in local businesses. I'm your host, Anthony Karls, president of Rocket Clicks. Today, I'm joined by Mr. Matt Hawker. He is one of our
What's up?
product owners here. He leads our B2C national team. He also leads our giant implementation.
Yes, sir.
So today, we are continuing our talk on leadership. Last week, we kind of gave an overview of our voices. Last time we talked, we gave an overview of our voices. We're going to start diving deeper into these voices in our giant program, talk a little bit about the nurturer today, and we'll have more information for you about that in a second. But before we do that,
Oh boy,
I'm going to give you the question of the day.
all right.
Matt, what is the most interesting place you've ever traveled, and why did you enjoy it?
I love these unscripted questions. Most interesting place I've ever traveled. Uh, I I think I would have to say so. So music is a very big part of my life, especially singing. A lot of people don't. They're like, you don't look like a singer. It's like it's okay, I know, but I've sang a lot. I've sang all over the world. And probably one of the coolest places that I've ever been was Ireland. And when we were there, we actually got, instead of just staying in like a regular hotel, uh, we got to stay in a hotel that used to be a castle that sat on top of a big hill in like the middle of nowhere in Ireland. And it was beautiful. And like there were the big lions out front. There was the cavern underneath where like they used to be the jail. It was amazing. The library was like a three-story library. We just still had all the original books like on the walls. They turned it into a bar area to sit and mingle with people. It was super cool. So that's probably the coolest place that I personally
Yeah.
have ever been. Um, I went with a whole bunch of buddies of mine that I sang with when I was in college. So it was a long time ago, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I'd love to go back there and take my family there someday.
Yeah, I would say Jody's going to listen to this and she's going to be like, "When are we going?
I,
When's
hey, it's on the list.
the list?" Good. Okay, so let's jump in. So let's talk. The next couple episodes that we do together, we're going to talk about each of the five voices in detail.
Yep.
Give a good deep dive overview. So when we talk about the nurturer voice,
Yes, sir.
describe the nurturer voice to me. Like, who are they generally? And obviously, all of these are generalizations. They're not
Correct.
specific archetypes, but they help understand people generally.
Yeah, absolutely. So nurturer, they are really like the the champion of the people, the
Mhm.
people part of your organization. Like that's what they care about the most.
Yeah.
They're all about people, they're all about relational harmony, and they're all about like values that relate to culture.
Yeah.
And the reason why nurturer is like so important, all the voices are important, but especially like understanding a nurturer and what their natural tendencies are is because nurturers make up about 43% of our general population. 43. So 43 people, if you have 100 people in your org, 43 of them are going to be a nurturer,
Yeah.
more than likely, or around that number. So it's a very large majority, right? Um, they're people focused. That's kind of the biggest piece about them. Um, they care deeply for everybody on their team,
Yeah.
and they love celebrating accomplishments of others on their team.
Yeah. And I know one of the things that they sometimes struggle with is thinking about how they bring bring it themselves. Sometimes some of our
Yes,
greatest assets on our team can be nurturers, and they discredit the value they bring
they do.
because they don't want
They
to get
do.
in the way of others and the relational harmony that they might disjoint by taking credit and making people feel a certain way. So if you kind of jump in, when we go through our giant assessment in this first seminar that we do, when we're asking the team, we ask them to grade all these statements that we have here on green if it really fits, green yellow if it fits somewhat, yellow if it's kind of, yellow red if it's like maybe a little bit, but not really. And red if it's like, that doesn't sound like me at all.
Yep.
So we're gonna read a couple statements off, and that's kind of what this voice typically looks like. So like, what are some of these things? Describe them for me.
Yeah. So for the nurturer, they intuitively feel how an organization will react to a new idea. So, you have a new idea and a concept comes up. A nurturer is going to say, "I don't know. Like, I don't know how our team's going to take that, or I don't know how everybody's going to handle. I don't know how everybody's going to handle that. Have we thought about that?" And that's one of the big things too. Like they're pragmatic realists
Mm-hmm.
that sit in the moment and they say, "Has this really been thought through?" Like there's some different voices where like, "Yep, let's do it. Let's go. We're gonna get there." And they're like, "Whoa, well, guys, hold up. Like, has this really been thought through? Have we really done our due diligence to think through this, how this is gonna affect the team?"
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things that they can bring to your team because it's kind of like the nurturers are like the 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 reins. If you're like riding a horse, they kind of like slow you down when you need to slow down to take a look at the view. Well, the view is the rest of the people in your company.
Yeah. That's good. So what else?
Um, so uh, I talked about like they take genuine delight in celebrating the achievements of other people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're natural team players, and one of the things I don't like to call it a downside, but we all have downsides. It's just part of life. Nobody's perfect. But one of theirs is like you talked about. They don't ever like to kind of uh, take credit for any of the things that they do. They'll push it off to other people. And I think part of that is because they're really resistant to change.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of overly resistant to change, might you say? And because of that, sometimes they can demonstrate some passive aggressive tendencies. Anybody have passive aggressive tendencies? Anybody on their team? But it's okay because every team needs a nurturer. But these are some of the things that we kind of have people go through. It's like, is this sound like you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, no, maybe a little bit, and then we have them color these red, green, and yellow, like you said.
Yeah, and they're unbelievably helpful when you're doing super large changes, getting their buy-in and feedback first, and then having them help deliver the message and really vet out all of the things, all the details beforehand is a really good idea because they're gonna think about all the things that like a pioneer voice won't think about, who's more
Right.
likely to initiate change. And they're going to be like, "Yep, this is a step 1, 2, 3 process." And the nurturer is going to come along and be like, "What about all this? This is actually 30 steps. And what about all the 27 that you missed? And how is that going to make the team feel when they're lost and confused and frustrated? And like, they're not going to want to do this. And everyone's going to be resistant. And they're going to say all of that stuff for you if they feel safe and if they feel confident."
Yep.
Well, it's really up to you to create a space for their voice because they're,
That's
like we talked about in the first session, we talked about these a little bit. What does their voice volume look like?
Their voice volume is very low.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be somebody that speaks up first in a meeting. They're not going to be, if you're asking for like audience participation in a meeting, they're not going to be the ones that say, "I'll go first." That's probably going to be your connector. But you just said it, like you have to create a safe space for them in order to do that. And one of the ways that we do it here at Rocket Clicks is if I'm in a meeting with a nurturer and I'm looking for feedback from people within the room, I always call on the nurturer first. I want their voice to be heard because they're not naturally going to speak up for themselves if others are in the room that have a louder voice.
Mm-hmm.
Their voice is the quietest voice out of all of the voices. So super smart people with a lot of things to say, they just don't like to say it because a lot of times if somebody doesn't agree, they're conflict averse, right? They don't want to cause conflict. They like that relational harmony. They like harmony within the team.
Yeah.
So they just kind of sit back on those. So you have to create that space for them.
Yeah, even on a leadership team, if you have a nurturer on your leadership team and if they're surrounded by uh, more future-oriented voices, more guardians that are present but very logic-based, or pioneers who are very logic future-based, or connectors who are future relational-based. So if they're surrounded by that and they're like, oh, the group is having a good time talking about this, and they like know something that they should say, but like everything's going well, they might not say it if you didn't create space for them to say it.
Correct.
And then
Correct.
most of the time, what they have to say is super valuable in the context of like how we're thinking about the change. And
Absolutely.
that could be missed because we're excited about the future and all the details about the future and how we're going to get there and all of that. And if we don't invite them in intentionally and get their feedback about how's the team going to respond, how's the team going to feel, how do we get this implemented well, how do we get their buy-in, you're going to come to the team, you're going to try to implement, and you're going to get the big old brakes stop sign because you didn't do a good job including all the people that you needed to.
It's absolutely right. Like it's so easy for so many of us to think in the future, but a nurturer's voice, like they live in the present, right? And they live and but all of the stuff that we've talked through too, it's no surprise. Like they're very relational based instead of logic based,
Yeah.
right? So your a nurturer is going to care more about the culture of your organization than what they're going to care about the P&L. And it's not that they don't care about the P&L. That's not it. It's just their natural tendencies push them to care more about the people, and that relates more to the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not what are the people going to do in the future, it's how are we going to think about this and feel about this now.
Yeah. Awesome. So just to recap on the nurture, they're champion of voice, relational harmony, values. Watch out for nurturers kind of fear conflict, often won't speak out and like in a something's not right, alarm bell, red light. If they're really silent, if they're beware of silence, invite them in.
Yeah.
If you're experiencing that, oh, it seems like so and so's really quiet, not saying much. We probably need to pull them in because you're missing something.
Have to create that space.
And then how to empower them? Let them speak first, like you said. Affirm their competence and like affirm their confidence and their genuine value that they contribute to the team because they'll discredit that. Because a lot
One
of
of
what they're going to bring is going to be it's going to feel like breaks, so it's hard for them to bring it because they want to preserve their relational harmony with if they're on a leadership team with that team, and they also want to do that with the teams that they're on. So like they're kind of getting some conflicted feelings sometimes. So you got to empower them.
One of the biggest things that you can do to empower a nurturer is to explain to them and show them like the impact that they had on other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like because of what you did, this person was able to grow in this way. That's going to make them feel amazing because they're all about the people. They're all about bringing value, and they're not going to call it out on themselves. Be like, hey, guess what I did? So you have to call that out for them. You have to be their champion to say, you know what? This is because of you, our company was able to do this, or this person was able to do this.
Yeah, when we were going through the giant certification process, one of the things they say in there is you can compliment a nurturer every single day for the rest of their life, and they still probably won't believe that they're really good at what they're really good at because that's just how they're wired. Like you can compliment them over the moon, and like they're still going to say, I don't know if I'm good enough. So keep building their confidence, invite them in because they'll help your orgs.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Appreciate it, sir. So next time we meet, we're going to dive into the creative voice and we'll continue on our journey here.
One thing I do want to bring up also with a nurturer is if you don't treat them well, or if you don't treat the people that they care about well, they will start to remove that care from people. They'll start to remove that want to help people. They'll start to remove the care that they have for everybody else, and then that's when things can get super toxic. So I think in a later podcast that we're going to do down the road, we're going to talk about weapon systems, and the nurturers is the removal of care. So a little preview for what we'll talk about later on down the road, but it's a really important thing to make sure that they know how valued they are and to not mess with their people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Appreciate it, Matt.
Absolutely.
Look forward to next time.
Yep. See you later.